Have you ever felt a presence lurking in the shadows, an unseen terror that sends a chill down your spine? Imagine, if you will, a quiet suburban house, the sort of place one might expect nothing more than the mundane. Yet within its walls, a chilling tale unfolds. Our protagonist, let's call him John, used to live a life of normalcy until the day he sensed something unseen. John was not a man given to flights of fancy or prone to fear, but this was different. It began subtly, a whisper of movement in the corner of his eye, a feeling of being watched, even when he was alone. The hairs on the back of his neck would stand on end, an icy shiver running down his spine. He would turn quickly, but there was always nothing. It was as if the air itself held its breath, a silent witness to his growing dread. The nights grew longer for John, filled with unsettling dreams and a sense of dread. He would wake up in the middle of the night, the silence of his room interrupted by a distant, indistinct murmur. It was as though the walls of his home were closing in on him, the shadows growing darker, more menacing. In the light of day, he would find things out of place. His keys not where he left them, a chair slightly moved, a door ajar that he was sure he had closed. These small disturbances, while seemingly insignificant, compounded his fear. There was something there with him, an unseen entity that was toying with him, feeding off his fear. The fear grew, wrapping itself around John like a shroud. It was a terror that he couldn't shake, a constant companion in his own home. He felt watched, stalked, hunted by something he couldn't see, couldn't touch, couldn't fight. It was an unseen terror lurking in the shadows, its presence felt but never seen. But as terrifying as the unseen may be, it's the visible horrors that can truly petrify us. Imagine the terror of coming face to face with a horrifying apparition, a sight so dreadful it freezes you in your tracks. Let me take you on a chilling journey, a tale of one person's encounter with the visible horror. This is the story of Sam, a pragmatic man who never believed in the supernatural until one fateful night. This is a tale not for the faint-hearted, for it's a story where reality crossed paths with the uncanny, the inexplicable, the truly horrifying. On a cold, dreary night, Sam was returning from a late-night shift. The world around him was blanketed in an eerie silence, the kind that amplifies the rustle of every leaf, the creak of every branch. As he walked down the deserted street, a chilling breeze swept through, making the hairs on his neck stand on end. Suddenly he noticed a figure standing at the end of the street. It stood unnaturally still and seemed to emanate an aura of dread. As he approached, the figure became more distinct. It was a woman with long, flowing hair and a white, flowing dress. But her face, it was a sight that could make the bravest heart quiver in fear. The eyes were hollow, gaping sockets, the mouth twisted in a grotesque smile that seemed to stretch beyond the realms of possibility. Sam's heart pounded in his chest, his blood ran cold. Fear, the kind that paralyzes and consumes, gripped him. He wanted to run, to escape, but his legs wouldn't obey. The world around him seemed to narrow down to this terrifying apparition. Then, in a voice that sounded like 1,000 whispers, the figure spoke. Its words were incoherent, a language unknown, yet they carried an unmistakable menace. The air around Sam grew colder, the silence more profound. In a desperate attempt to escape, Sam mustered the strength to move, to turn around and run. He didn't look back, didn't dare to. His heart pounded in his ears, his breath came out in ragged gasps. He didn't stop until he reached the safety of his home. The fear, however, remained a constant companion in the days that followed. The face of the apparition haunted his dreams, its voice echoed in his thoughts. He lived in perpetual fear, the dread of the unknown overshadowing his every waking moment. This encounter with the visible horror changed Sam. It shook his skepticism, made him question his understanding of reality. It was an encounter that he would carry with him for the rest of his life, a chilling reminder of the fine line that separates the known from the unknown, the natural from the supernatural. But what if the horror isn't an entity, but a place, a location that chills your soul? Have you ever stepped into a place that overwhelms you with a sense of dread, a location so chilling that it feels as though the very air is tainted with fear? Picture this. Our protagonist, let's call her Jane, had just moved into an old, dilapidated house on the outskirts of a small town. The house, with its worn-out facade and eerie silence, was a place that the locals avoided after the sun went down. But Jane, being new and unaware of the local folklore, was blissfully ignorant of the house's chilling reputation. The house, as Jane soon found out, had a mind of its own. Doors would creak open without a hint of wind, lights would flicker without reason, and the temperature would drop drastically, leaving a shivering Jane wrapped in multiple layers of clothing. But the most unsettling part? The whispers. Jane could hear them, soft and low, like the rustling of leaves in an autumn breeze. They were unintelligible, yet they carried a certain ominous undertone that sent shivers down Jane's spine. They seemed to be coming from the house itself, as if the walls were alive and trying to communicate with her. As the days turned into weeks, Jane's apprehension grew. The house seemed to haunt her dreams, the whispers growing louder and more insistent. Jane tried to rationalize it all, blaming it on the old plumbing or the wind whistling through the cracks. However, the terrifying realization hit her one quiet evening. Jane was sitting in the living room, engrossed in a book, when she felt a cold, spectral hand brush against her shoulder. Startled, she turned around, but the room was empty. The whispers, however, were louder than ever, the words still unintelligible, but the menace in them palpable. Jane knew then the chilling truth. The house was not just an old, decrepit building. It was more than that. It was a place tainted with fear, a location that held onto its past and refused to let go. It was a place that was alive, its horror etched into every brick, every wooden plank, every rusted nail. The realization was terrifying. The location itself was the source of the horror. It wasn't a ghost or a creature hiding in the shadows. The horror was the very place she was living in. The whispers, the cold, the unease, they were all part of the house's chilling character, a testament to its haunting past. Jane left the house soon after. She couldn't bear to stay. Not when every corner, every room, every whisper was a constant reminder of the fear that the house embodied. In the end, whether the source of terror is unseen, visible, or a place, the fear it instills is real and profound. In the realm of horror, the source of fear may vary, but the terror it breeds is all too real. Let's revisit the chilling tales we've just unraveled. Each story, distinct in its own right, has painted a vivid picture of the diverse sources of horror that exist out there. The unseen terror, our first tale, demonstrated that fear can often be a product of the unknown. The protagonist was terrorized not by what was seen, but by what was unseen, the unseen that lurked in the shadows, the unseen that haunted the corners of the mind. Then we explored the visible horror. This story showed us that horror can also be tangible, visible, and brutally real. The protagonist here was hounded not by the unknown, but by a horrifying entity that was all too real, all too close. The fear experienced wasn't abstract, but concrete, a chilling reminder of the fact that sometimes what we see can indeed scare us to the core. Our third story, the chilling location, took us to a place where the environment itself was the source of horror. The protagonist was trapped in a setting where every corner whispered tales of dread, every sound echoed with fear, and every moment was steeped in terror. The fear here was rooted in the location, reminding us that sometimes places can house horrors that are far beyond our understanding. Each of these encounters left a lasting impact on the protagonists. They were changed, shaped by their experiences, their realities irrevocably altered. Their stories serve as a chilling reminder that fear has many faces, many forms, and it can strike when least expected. Remember, the world of horror is vast and varied, and it always finds a way to seep into our reality, making us question what truly lurks in the shadows.